today we have machines that can go up to 160,000 chicks per hour. And this is like 45 chicks per second with like constant accuracy of 97% across the day.
Yeah, I will say one of the incentives to use automatic sexing is that you have a higher accuracy, most likely, or at least that's what Targan suggests, but also the availability of workers, right? So that will be a huge benefit to go from manual to automatized.
Also the feed conversion is amazing. So he's, I think, have an average weight totally with 2 times thinning, something like 2.8. The final weight is 3.5. What's quite high for the current slaughterhouses, but somehow his birds are good enough to slaughter. And the feed conversion around 1.51, what I think is extremely low on that average weight.
Any country that I would say that is growing birds greater than, let's say on as hatched 2.5 kilo bird, then you're starting to get into the territory of needing to sex birds.
Good day everyone, and welcome to the Poultry World Roundtable discussion on maximizing efficiency across the broiler production value chain. This session is made possible together with our partner Targan. My name is Fabian Brokter, and today I'm joined by Vincent Fevrier, representing Targan, Jaap Brokking, independent consultant and currently representing IKO, Roger Davin, senior researcher at Schothorst Feed Research, and Stuart Thomson from Aviagen. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here and joining this conversation. Our aim today is to give you exclusive insights from the industry stakeholders here at the table on what it takes to run a successful hatchery, broiler operation and poultry processing plant. We will focus on how feather sexing and subsequently raising males and females separately can be leveraged to elevate your operation. Feather sexing by hand has been done for many years in countries across the world, but everybody who has witnessed the process knows it has its downfalls. Really laborious, and when workers are not skilled enough or can't stay sharp until the end of the shifts, there's a lot of room for mistakes. I have to say, I've done it myself in a hatchery in Thailand, but only with a 50-50 result. So hence the career change to Poultry World. With the introduction of automated feather sexing, sex-separate rearing presents new opportunities for optimizing broiler strategies. Starting at the top of the pyramid, Stuart, can you share what research Aviagen has done from this perspective with its Ross 308 and 708 birds?
Yeah, so both our products, the 308 and 708, are slow-feathered birds, and both are therefore feather sexable, so the opportunities there to grow separate sex is there right from a very early point. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And from a genetic potential point of view, does rearing males and females separately create opportunities? Otherwise said, how much do male and females actually differ?
Yes, so we've done a little bit of work in this area, looking at the nutritional differences between males and females, and actually we can see that the males are much more protein sensitive, let's say, than the females. Actually require more protein to maximise their biological outputs.
I wonder if male and female differences are recognized by farmers and producers, and if they are set up correctly to raise males and females separately. Jaap, do you see willingness to do so, and is it worth it?
No, I visited one farmer in the Netherlands, and he's already for a long time using males and females separately. And he has tremendous good results, both on feed conversion and on daily weight grain. So he's able to, with 2 times thinning, to go up to 55 kilograms a square meter per round, and still staying in the lines of the 42 kilograms, what's allowed in the Netherlands. And also the feed conversion is amazing. So he's, I think, have an average weight totally with 2 times thinning, something like 2.8. The final weight is 3.5. What's quite high for the current slaughterhouses, but somehow his birds are good enough to slaughter. And the feed conversion around 1.51, what I think is extremely low on that average weight.
Mm-hmm. And do you see a willingness for the processing plants to pay for the heavier birds?
I visit also a slaughterhouse who already has experience, but he cannot go further than 3.5. There's a little bit of limitations in the Netherlands. And of course, processors are not so willing to support farmers in paying, but they see the benefits. And I think they will, but you have to, as a farmer, especially when you are an independent farmer, independent slaughterhouse, you have to ask for it. But then finally, I think they will, because more and more birds are completely deboned. New technology is coming, so also for the slaughterhouse, have heavier birds is a benefit, because the costs are fixed per shekel. So if you are able to process and you have a market for complete deboning, there is also for the slaughterhouse a big benefit. But of course, slaughterhouses are always thinking about themselves, what we also understand. But definitely there is. But what I asked to this guy, he was willing to do.
And I can imagine that within a fully integrated model, this would be more profitable for the whole value chain.
Actually, that's why, as you introduced me, I do some work for IKO. He bought a machine, he has his own farm, his own slaughterhouse, and he made already the decision to buy the Targan machine, because he has done this hand sexing. And he see already the benefits on the farm, what was there, and he understands the benefits of the slaughterhouse. But he's fully integrated, so for him the decision was easier than when you're an independent farmer, an independent slaughterhouse.
Thanks, Jaap. Do you have anything to add, Roger?
Yeah, I will say I have also experience in other latitudes in Europe especially, and I will say in South Europe, yes, sex feeding has been already done, probably, yeah, a lot of manual sexing, but raising males and females separately, that's already a common practice in Southern Europe. And I will say, probably answering Jaap's comment, I will say that, yeah, the slaughterhouses can be more flexible, right? It's common to have 1-2 thinnings in many companies in Southern Europe, especially if they are integrated. And then, yeah, they have a line in the slaughterhouse optimal for light birds, for medium-sized birds, and for heavy birds. I will say in Southern Europe, where there is more integration, there is great potential to benefit for automatic sex feeding, because that's a practice already done, but there needs some adjustments that need to happen to make it optimal. I'm thinking more on different levels, right? As an integrator, you have the control of the whole chain, from the hatchery to the slaughterhouse, and each of these sections, I think, need further, let's say, refinement.
Yeah, and that's a model which is common in South Europe.
Yeah.
But with Stuart, with Aviagen as being a global player, where do you see sex-separate rearing gaining the most traction? And where are the market preferences less suited for feather sexing?
I mean, if you look at the differences between how the females and males grow, you can see that the daily gain of the female kind of optimizes in around 37 days. And then you start losing efficiency on that female. So you're probably at a point where you need to thin out that bird at that point and grow the males on slightly longer. And that's where you got all the advantage of maybe supplying a slightly higher protein diet to that male. So any country that I would say that is growing birds greater than, let's say on as hatched 2.5 kilo bird, then you're starting to get into the territory of needing to sex birds. So the UK would be prime. A lot of customers in the UK would grow heavier birds than that. Italy, Spain already is sexing. But when you move into some of the, let's say, the Middle Eastern countries where they prefer lower kill weights, probably sexing of broilers is probably not something that's going to happen there anytime soon.
No, it's not efficient for lighter birds. No. As we touched upon before, we have integrated and more independently organized value chains. I can imagine that they will approach sex-separate rearing differently. Roger, did you get any request of information for your research at Schothorst Feed Research? And is that coming from more integrated or more independently organized chains?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I will say most of the requests comes from integrated companies because, as I mentioned earlier, they have full control of the whole production chain. I see even from the hatchery point of view, you can already decide, okay, for maybe young parent stock, we also seen some data that it's harder to identify males, females, so then maybe these are more suitable for as hatch feeding. Another point will be on the, let's say, on the feed mill level, right? So if you have an integrated system, you also control all the different types of feeds that you can produce. So that's another advantage, but at the same time can be the limitation that if you're not, if your feed mill is not prepared, you can also have a limitation on the number of feeds that you can supply. So that's one of the challenges, but can be overcome as well. And then the next step will be at barn level. What I see in Spain, in Italy, is that most of the times males and females are raised in the same barn. They're separated by a fence, and then they will do some thinning of the females at 1.6, 1.7 kilos. So then the males will have extra area, so they will have more also chance to grow, so have some compensatory growth as well. And then you have the possibility to, okay, either feed a special feed to them, or you can extend some of the previous phase feeds. So that's another possibility. And then the last phase will be at the slaughterhouse. So I will expect if you could have a separate sex feeding, you can have also less variation.
We'll cover the exact nutritional requirements later on. Moving to Vincent, how to encourage sex-separate rearing uptake in our industry? Because we are moving at different speeds, the independent and more integrated models, but how do we promote it even more?
Well, just to answer to Roger, I mean, 70% of our customers in Europe today are integrations. And they have clear data on return on investment, on feed conversion, on carcass quality. So they should be the first one enrolling into sexing if they are not already doing it. Yeah, but they should have transparent communication through the chain to work on incentives. And
yeah, I will say one of the incentives to use automatic sexing is that you have a higher accuracy, most likely, or at least that's what Targan suggests, but also the availability of workers, right? So that will be a huge benefit to go from manual to automatized.
Yeah, for hatcheries who like integration who are already sexing, of course it makes sense to go to automatic sexing because you're not dependent on the labor and also human errors. Also, we are talking about, you know, like very high throughputs. So today we have machines that can go up to 160,000 chicks per hour, and this is like 45 chicks per second. With like constant accuracy of 97% across the day. On the challenge is to keep this high throughputs with high accuracy, considering all the differences in flock age, in type of breeds, in chick quality, and also hatch window. It's really complicated. So this is why we use artificial intelligence in WingScan to do this.
And when it comes to coordination within the chain, Stuart, what is needed to properly align the hatchery, the farm, and the feed mill to get optimum results from sex-separate rearing?
Yeah, it takes a lot of planning, a bit like what Roger has mentioned already, but there needs to be a clear objective on what they are trying to achieve and what weights they're trying to achieve, and whether that means we have female-only farms and male-only farms, or we do something in houses. That needs clear thought and planning to understand what we're trying to achieve. And the processing factory has the ability to take those birds in at the correct weight ranges and deal with them cost effectively.
Yeah, and I can imagine that part of the profits can be made in using the square meters, as Jaap said, yes, but also from a nutritional point of view, Roger, can we tailor the nutrition to the sex-separate rearing? What would that benefit?
Yeah, I think that's a great opportunity for companies already doing separate sex feeding, but that's at the same time the challenge, because nowadays most of the barns have one line of feeding, and most of the times males and females are grown at the same barn. There are two options, I will say. One is, as Stuart said, to grow males and females at a separate barn up to the end of their cycle, let's say. That has also benefits because in terms of health, there is less movement of people and machinery and animals. So that's one option. In Finland, I think it's quite common to have those all-in, all-out approaches. But I will say most of the integrated companies in Southern Europe, males and females are raised in the same barn. So yeah, here most of the barns have one feeding line. One possibility in these setups will be to have two different lines and then divide probably the barn instead of sideways, let's say divided long ways to have right and left for males and females, having one feeding line. Another option in the current situation where you have one barn with one feeding line, once you have, let's say, removed the females, you can also then have extending some of the feeding phases. Let's say if females go at 1.6, 1.7 kilograms, then males can still receive some of the, let's say, grower 2 feed that is higher in protein, lower in energy. So that gives the chance for these males to grow up a little further. That's one approach. Another approach, yeah, if you have the possibility to have separate lines or separate barns, is to totally build a different feeding program. And then usually, as Stuart mentioned, for males, you see a great response of males to amino acids, to protein, so because they have a higher potential for carcass yield and breast yield. But for females, you can probably moderate this protein or amino acid levels, so that potentially you can create a different feeding program, most likely from day 20.
Right, and would that save cost, or is it just tailoring the nutritional needs of the bird better?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I will say this is going to the direction of precision feeding, right? So if you can really match the needs or the requirements of those males and females more accurate, at the end you will be saving cost, being more efficient at the end. So that's, I will say, the main goal.
Yeah, yeah. And at Schothorst, did you do specific trials on specific diets for males and females?
So in our recommendations, we have different advice for as such males or female feeding. And when it comes to separate males and female feeding, we have a separate recommendation starting around day 20. Because in our studies, similar to probably what Stuart observed at Aviagen, is that the growth the first 10, 15, 20 days is not as different as after this phase. Let's say after day 20, really you see a clear difference on the sex. Yep.
All right, thank you so much, Roger. What I want to put on the table is that we are trying to grow birds as efficient as fast as possible. But we all do know this comes at the risk of having meat deficiencies or myopathies. Can we tailor nutrition and also flock management to address those issues in a good way, to keep them under control?
So we've done extensive trials to understand let's say the cause and impact of meat myopathies. We've got a very in-depth booklet that goes through the genetics, the nutrition and the management aspects, but from a nutritional point of view, there is things that we recommend to customers just now that would have the challenges of some meat myopathies, and we can tailor, especially the grower phase, the diet there to try and reduce the risk of meat myopathies later on in life. So for sure that presents itself great opportunities to try and maximise growth, but also reduce myopathies.
Roger?
Yeah, I will agree that a lot of research has been done in this period of the grower phase, but then it's also true that if you have a thinning of birds and then you allow, let's say, males to have more room, have more rearing space, males is the sex that has most prevalence of wooden breast and white striping due to their high growth potential. So after thinning, if you have males with more space, more availability of feeding, then there is the risk of having this compensatory growth, having really high average daily gains, and that may also be a risk for more myopathies when you bring birds at 42 days of age or more.
Vincent, is this is a subject that Targan talks about with his potential customers as well? That when you have really fast-growing big birds, you have to take in account possible risk factors?
Yes, of course, we have discussion around this subject with our customers. And for us, it's important that they are well prepared with the knowledge on how to get the best of their sex birds. And this is, this roundtable is part of this. But I really think that working with more homogeneous flock should help in the management of the target weight and also the slaughter schedule. I think it will help with this issue also.
And when we go to the processing plant, Jaap, I always say consistent bird sizing is really profitable for a processing facility. From a plant operations perspective, how does separate rearing improve things like automation, waste reduction, and increased yield?
Yeah, very good question. I'd just like to go back one step.
Okay.
What Stuart and also Roger mentioned is about the management in the farm. But we see at IKO on the moment already, because we are now have more practical information. If you walk in a barn, we have in the front the females, in the back the males, because the females we're thinning out. You see that the litter is more dry with the males as with the females. What's already big benefits, because when you have not food laces, what is also a welfare issue, but also a cost. If you have too many, let's say black spots on your legs, you cannot sell them to China. So that's already a first part where you're taking as an advantage in the slaughterhouse at the start. And then what I really was very interested is that to understand from this farmer in the Netherlands and also his slaughterhouse, he can slaughter at 3.5 kilo. Well, we say when you have the mixed birds, maximum weight is 3, right, because too much variation. So that brings a lot of benefits. And for the slaughterhouses, there is a new market coming, and that is what we call snacking market. So in Europe and America is far ahead, but there's a lot of snacking. So you can cut up the whole bird and sell it in Europe. Mm-hmm. In the past, we were selling only the breast meat, and we are dumping, what I don't like, the legs to Africa. Right. So if you kind of debone the whole bird, you're also thinking about sustainability. And of course, you can make a profit on slaughtering the birds, deboning the birds, and added value to making kind of snacking to sell on the local market. Mm-hmm. So there I see for the slaughterhouse a lot of opportunities. Mm-hmm. But IKO make the decision based that he has the profits on the farm. Mm-hmm. And now he's starting to learn what will be happening in the slaughterhouse.
Right, right. Because potentially, and you mentioned the cut-up phase, you can be more efficient there.
Your speed can be a little bit higher because you have not too many difference in your calibrations of the machines, especially how older, but what you mentioned, how older birds are more difficult. You have what we've seen already with IKO for the first, let's say, 4 or 5 months, less bee quality. Chicken you have to cut by hand. So there are a lot of things what we see already. We don't have, let's say, high quality data, but people in the slaughterhouse, of course, fully integrated. So they are already happy, so they are not depending on the farm. But even the people in the slaughterhouse, they're already quite happy with it. Yeah. And we just started as IKO.
Yeah, and we also have customers saying, well, they have, like the very latest technology also in slaughterhouse. But talking to the suppliers of this technology, they are saying, well, if you have homogeneous, like birds, it will be even better. Technology will not do everything with a different carcass. So I think really having homogeneous bird will help with slaughter lines.
Yeah. As less as possible variation on the slaughter lines. Yeah.
If I may add to Jaap's comment about the footpad lesions and about the different litter quality, I think that's a reflection on how important it is to have different feeding schemes for males and females. And probably what Jaap mentioned, for females they have worse litter quality, or more wet, more moist. It's probably connected to the fact that females require less protein than males. So if you are overfeeding protein or amino acids, then the bird will excrete more nitrogen, so more water will appear on the litter. So I will say that really explains the importance of having a separate nutrition scheme.
And that was not what we expected. So it's just what we see in observations. I saw it 3 months ago, last week. I was in one of the houses of IKO, and I see it again. And that's why, Stuart, I'm also very interested in the UK. We are talking about sustainability, because I can also imagine that you also have more, let's say, waste going through the air, like the ammonia.
Yeah, the emissions, yeah.
And do you have there any information about that part? If you have less of better litter quality, do you have less ammonia?
Yeah, I mean, it stands to reason if you've got better litter quality, you would have the less of these pollutants. And it's something that, from an industry point of view, the UK industry is under a lot of pressure, especially when it comes to trying to build new farms. They've got to try and work their way through all these emissions studies to try and demonstrate that they will be able to control the emissions.
Now, I can imagine that in conversation with customers, both on the plant side but also on the hatchery side, Stuart, is that do you have in a conversation with a client a discussion on sex-separate rearing and the benefits thereof?
Where that discussion starts is probably more on the uniformity of the birds going into the processing plant, and that's where we probably get a bit of pressure from certain customers that are growing slightly heavier birds. They are looking for a more uniform bird going into the factory, and then that is at the point where we start looking at optimising growing of poultry and therefore looking at sexing of birds. I mean, historically, the UK used to sex a lot more birds than it does today, but I think it's only a matter of time before it comes back to the UK. I think it's coming.
And I also can imagine, Jaap, that in the end customer of the meat, like McDonald's, they have certain certain wishes as well. Are you tuning into that with from the processing plant's point of view when it comes to separate rearing?
I call this the $1 million question. And it is, and we are really doing there a lot, because, you know, with breast meat you can now slice and dice. You see more and more, for example, in Germany there is a big market for schnitzels. Maybe we can slice with a big bird, maybe 2 schnitzels, and the top we can go to the reader. So there are things we are really investigating. What I already mentioned on the leg, deboning of the legs is much easier. More and more demand that people like leg meat products. So when we're talking about the end use like McDonald's and also restaurant chains, there's more and more interest for let's say Asian style of chicken. What's more the red meat part? The red meat is the legs part. And there now we have this deboning, and one of the things that IKO, when he bought the machine, he thought he has a problem with the legs, but then people are investing and they like to pay more money for big legs because the efficiency is much higher, and the market is demanding for red meat. So that's a huge, what I even like to call it, a game changer. And the home deliveries, they really like this Korean, Japanese style of products, and it is really booming business. Even in Paris, we have some customers, they have just started, really looking for this red meat, and that helps the sexing a lot, because if you debone a big leg or a small leg, it's cost efficient, it's huge. So there I see really great potential for sexing.
Yeah, we always are looking for the small margins, and there's also when it comes to technique and automation. Of course, automation plays a really critical role in poultry operations. But Vincent, how does AI-driven sexing compare to the traditional methods, going back a little bit more in the beginning of the chain? What value does it unlock?
Well, as I mentioned before, WingScan replaces manual feather sexing at a very high speed and constant accuracy during the day. And I mentioned about the difference in the flock, in the chicks itself, because of the chick quality, because of of the flock age on the breeds. So automation and artificial intelligence brings all the value there. Now with automation, it's I mean the hatcheries are bigger and bigger, and the labor is really more difficult to find. And when you want to get less dependency on labor, on human error, then you need automation. And then the counterback is really that you need to manage also animal welfare with this high accuracy, and this is really something that Targan is really on it. We have a team specialized on animal welfare to make sure that there is no injuries on birds, still at the same throughputs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Maybe in relation to the increasing size of hatcheries, I think a practical point is also, especially for integrators, in order to deliver those birds to their farms, if you have separate sex feeding, you also need to make sure that the barns are most likely same size if you want to have males on one barn, females on one barn. And that can be also another challenge if farmers have a different size of a barn. Mm-hmm. So that can be also a challenge for the planning, let's say, in order to deliver exact number of males, exact number of females at different barns. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you came across this challenge, but some producers that may have older barns from the 60s, from the 70s, so each farmer will have been building their own farm at different size. Mm-hmm. But nowadays, if you can start from scratch or have more modern barns that are identical, I would say that also gives a chance to implement this separate sex reading.
Yeah. It's a interacting game of numbers, I always say. There's a lot of data coming out of the processing plant and also from the hatcheries and also for the broiler farms. But Stuart, does that data we get from the chain, does that feed back to the breeder level as well?
Yeah. I mean, part of my remit, I suppose, is to ensure that I feed back into the R&D department on what's happening on the field with the birds, and that helps them make better decisions in terms of how they're selecting those birds. So data, I think, is so underestimated. It's one we talk about all the time. We talk about big data, and we probably collect more than we utilise, but it is invaluable insights into how we can better maximise the efficiency of the whole supply chain. So I'm never stop asking for data.
I fully agree with Stuart. If you look to a lot of slaughterhouse, they have a lot of data, but sometimes I call it even data diarrhea. And then we try to help them to structure it so that you can have a readable data, you know, and then you can use all kinds of BI tools. But you need to understand, because a manager should not have more than maybe 4 or 5 data, just like in your car. And that's where I think industry also needs a lot of help. There are a lot of Excel sheets, works very well, but not so easy to make correlations between weather or trucks or feed or. There, I think a lot of things what we can improve quite simple because technology is there. It's just a matter of kind of a discipline to understand what you can do with data. That's my point of view. But Stuart.
But it's also quite easy to get into a scenario when you're looking at data to analyse it in a certain way, and you get the answer you think you want to see. So we can go and make our own correlations, but if you've not got somebody else in the background actually looking at data in a slightly different way that's maybe not production minded, just data minded, and they can look at the relationships between data, we can make some very wrong decisions very, very quickly. So I think limiting them to let's say 5 data points is probably good, but in the same way we could make some wrong assumptions if we don't think about the whole supply chain. Yeah,
you have to take the bigger picture in account as well. You work together in implementing feather sexing at IKO. What has been the biggest operational shift within the company when it comes to feather sexing?
So IKO was one of the first adopters of WingScan in Europe, and I must say at the beginning, you know, the challenge was they were not sexing all the birds, 100% of the birds. So we worked with them on a solution that is scalable. So first we installed one system, and then we are planning to install a second one when they reach, you know, like more capacity. But the initial feedback from Mr. Zbigniew, the CEO, is better feed conversion in the farms and more homogeneous farms, flocks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's only part of the whole process in the plant, but farms, hatcheries. Can you tell something about that?
Well, in the case of IKO, it's an integration, so they have transparent communication, from the hatchery to the farm to the slaughter plants. So it makes it easier to tailor, their input also on the feed diets.
So the owner of IKO is actually really focused a lot on farming. So he bought the Targan based on the results he had from about 100,000 birds a week that he was doing by hand. Then he saw already the results. So for him, as owner of the complete supply chain, rearing farms, parent stocks, hatchery, a broiler farm, slaughterhouse, he made the decision. And he did it quite quickly because he knows the big benefits on the farm. When I met him last year at the Eurotier, he said, yeah, can you help me? Because I have a challenge to sell. But then I found three guys, and they were very happy to buy the big leg. So that was, so he make a very good decision based on his knowledge on the farming. And now we have to find the way we implement it in the complete planning process. And that's a challenge because what you mentioned already, you have different farms, you have different people, different emotions. So there is the challenge, I think.
Yeah. There's a lot involved. You have your technical, your operational, and also your economic data points. And it's still early days, right? Because IKO and a couple of other companies just invested in the tech. Yeah, well, what needs to be changed to get the most out of raising broilers sex separate? Stuart?
Yeah, I think if we go back to the start, you can maybe start in a hatchery, but I think we first need to look at the farms and practically how do we implement separate sex growing. Now, whether that's some of this splitting of feeder lines so we can feed separately, we have to look at that infrastructure on the farms, or do we look at separate houses or separate farms? I think all that bit needs to work through and understand and ensure farmers that are supplying into that, if they are going to be growing females or going to grow males, that they're not going to be out of pocket. So I think we've got to think about all the stakeholders in the supply chain and making sure that they're all getting their fair share of the pie, so to speak.
Yeah, and I totally agree with Stuart, but I also think we need to consider different markets, right? Different companies also, as we discuss integrated or, let's say, free market, but also the different markets, different countries. Like as we said, also in Poland, South Europe, they are already used to heavy weights. But then maybe countries like in the Netherlands, now they are also realizing the benefit of having a more integrated system where you can manage all these differences at hatchery level, at farm level, feed mill level, slaughterhouse. So I will say the future, I think that will allow more integration in our industry.
Yeah, your point?
Yeah, but I see the biggest benefits on the moment. We are not allowed to build any farms anymore. So what I see with this one and the other farmer, when you have a difference of 20% production, then the industry will go for that because consumption will go. So there I see you have a limitation on building new farms. But when you can get more meat from the same farm because of using the females and the males, I think that's a simple way to go because there is no other way to increase your production. Demand is there, the market is there, market is very good. Farmers make money, slaughterhouses make money. So how are you getting more birds when you cannot build new farms? So when you have an option with WingScan, the female, and you get 20% more out of your farms, yes, complicated management, complicated planning, slaughterhouses. So it's not, let's say, it will change tomorrow. But if it's that the case, that we are not building new farms and you can sell more, let's say 20%.
We need more output.
Yeah, from the same square meters.
Yeah.
Same like in Formula 1, you have one track, it's always the same, but how you can go fast on the track. And I think that's really what we mentioned, I think, all here. That's the biggest challenge, how you can manage over all the different stakeholders.
Yeah. Vincent?
Automation is here to help providers, answering the evolving demand on the markets. You have labor shortage, you have more demands on quality and also sustainability goals. The hatchery gets bigger. You need to implement automations. But also, and this is, as you said, the first demands we had was really from Italy, Spain, Poland, where you have already sexing implemented. But I must say that I receive now questions a lot of from the Netherlands, from Germany, but also from UK, France, is now considering this. And in Asia, this is also, like a common practice to do sexing. So I see this as growing very much. But as we discussed, we need to provide all the the answers and help the producers to switch and to change their organization towards sexing.
If you want to learn more about feather sexing and the discussion we had here, please follow us on our social media channels and also visit poultryworld.net and the Targan website. Thank you for joining, and I see you in one of our future events. Thanks.